Damian Lillard is going to be traded to the Knicks. Damian Lillard's going to be traded to the Heat. Damian Lillard should be traded to the Celtics. Damian Lillard's going to be traded to the Nets. If one of those trades went through out of those teams, which one would you be like, that's not too bad?
Miami, obviously. Miami is the obvious one, and Bam is my dog.
He says Miami. Now, he also said, hey, look, listen, it's up to Portland whether or not they're going to trade me. But he also said, I like Brooklyn. And he said, Mikal Bridges is a guy that I'm really good friends with, so I would not mind being traded to the Brooklyn Nets. In your opinion, what's the best fit for Dame Lillard?
This is a loaded question. I think twofold here. I'm going to preface this by saying Dame is my guy, and I know that he wants to be in Portland, and he's always talked about his affinity for bringing a championship to Portland with Portland. So I'll start with that. The obvious answer here is that if something were to occur, it makes sense. Miami's in the finals right now, right? They have great culture. They have, obviously, Eric Spoelstra. They have a young core. They got veteran players. They have a need for what he brings to the table. Jimmy talked about how he's not really a scorer. He scores, but he's not really a scorer. That is a certified scorer, leader, shot maker, shot taker. So it's obvious Miami's a great fit. We're not talking about Miami nightlife. We're not talking about what Miami has to offer from a tax standpoint, which are all great things. We're talking about the fact that they are consistently known for doing things the right way for their players, by their players. You look at Brooklyn, Mikal Bridges is his friend. It's New York. Dame does lots of things off the court. I'm sure that would be appeasing to him as well. So I would say, hypothetically, if this were to occur, in my eyes, you look at Miami first in the finals, and you look at Brooklyn.
Why is this different? We say it seems like every year we go through this with Dame in Portland, but why do you believe this summer will be different, that Portland will probably pull the trigger?
I think twofold. This is the year where Portland actually has the assets to potentially do something one way or the other. They have to kind of figure out, realistically, what do they want to accomplish going forward? You have Anthony, you have Shaedon Sharpe, you have all these young players. You got Nurk, you got Grant, who's expiring or becoming a free agent. And you have a lot of teams who value Scoot Henderson. You have a lot of teams who value some of the things you have to offer. And I think for Dame, it's a timeline thing. We're on the other side of 30. I said earlier today, we're closer to the end of our basketball careers in the beginning. So the light switch is coming on in terms of urgency, ability to win now, and what that looks like. We don't all want to play the game forever. We got families, we got things we want to do with our lives. And I think for Portland, it's a matter of doing right by Dame, obviously, but also understanding that there is no wrong decision here. You could decide to go young, and you could get a lot of assets for him, or you could decide to try to move some of those young assets to get a player to his caliber that can help win a championship. But bottom line is, I think the market will dictate what happens. I don't think Portland necessarily has the answer in their head right now. They have to figure out realistically what these other teams are looking for and what they're willing to give up for Dame. We're talking about a guy who makes a lot of money, who brings a lot of notoriety to your team, and there's a lot of teams who would give up a lot of assets for him. It's just a matter of what they want and what teams are willing to give up.
Zach Lowe, what do you think best fit would be for Dame?
Well, we got to step back for a second. Number one, how did CJ start his answer? He said Dame wants to be in Portland, and he said later on the podcast, The Last Stand with Brian Custer, that he expects to be in Portland next year. So let's start there. Number two, it's cool to talk about Miami and Miami's culture and what Miami has. What is Miami trading for Damian Lillard? Do they have enough to actually get in the conversation, should that conversation ever occur? And number three, when I hear Damian Lillard compliment Mikal Bridges, I don't necessarily think, oh, Brooklyn for Damian Lillard. I think Damian Lillard mentions Mikal Bridges in part to just needle the front office a little bit to say, hey, you got the number 3 pick. You got Anthony Simons. I like that dude in Brooklyn. Could we maybe bring him here and give me a better shot to win in Portland? That's what I heard.
Yeah.
What do you hear, Alan?
All I hear is that there's only one stage for Damian Lillard if ever he's going to leave Portland. That would be Madison Square Garden, because a player like that on that stage would be incredible. Look, I'll leave that there. Miami, though, just the idea of it, because I'm with Zach, what does Miami really have to offer that would make sense for Portland, which would be obviously in a major rebuild? It would be scary if he ended up in Miami with Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra and that culture, that guy. Yeah, you'd have Giannis, Tatum, Embiid, everybody be looking at Miami like, oh man, like, nobody wants to deal with that. But I will also say, though, that I believe, CJ, he has reached a point where Kevin Garnett reached this in 2007, because KG went through the same thing. The loyalty factor, I want to win here. They both had 8 straight playoff runs and then stopped making the playoffs. Their franchises were in an uncomfortable place. Eventually, Minnesota went to KG and said, we're not paying you and you're worth more to us in a trade at this point. They had to do it. Portland has to go to him and say, we need to get assets and let you move on and then find the best place for him. But if Portland doesn't get a lottery pick in whatever trade for him, they failed.
We'll see what happens. Great discussion here. All right, coming up, who is the hardest player to guard in the NBA right now?
What do Miami's first few three-point attempts look like? Is Denver's defense on point? Are they making them earn it? Are they making them run 4 or 5 different actions to get a decent three? Or are they falling apart after 1 or 2 actions like they did too many times in Game 2?
Allen?
Yeah, I'm going with the same exact thing. Is the closeouts defensively for the Denver Nuggets as they watched a ton of film, and Michael Malone found a ton of plays where they gave up like 40 points just off of bad defense. So are they closing out or in that 6.5? It's amazing. On their made threes, the average closest defender was 6.5 feet away. Unacceptable. Got to see that better in Game 3.
CJ, first thing you were looking for tonight?
I think it's 2 things. I want to see the pace of play, obviously understanding that this is a must-win game, and I want to see the mentality that Joker has coming out. He scored 18 points in the third quarter of Game 2. In Game 1, he had 10 assists by halftime, 0 turnovers. I'm interested in seeing which approach he takes in terms of the scoring and facilitating and how he balances that throughout the night.
Since you talked about Jokic, yesterday on my podcast, The Last Stand, I caught up with Damian Lillard, CJ's former teammate. He had high praise for Nikola Jokic.
When I really think about it, he's probably the best player in the league. I mean, obviously there's more gifted players and more probably talented dudes out there, but he's probably the best basketball player in the league. He shoot threes, he score on the block, he bring the ball up, he make plays, he's smart, he go to the line, he's in shape, he plays with good pace, he rebounds. He gets triple-double after triple-double without forcing the triple-double.
I love that. He gets a triple-double without forcing a triple-double. Right. Do you agree?
I agree. He just takes what the game gives him. And he's the type of superstar who doesn't make it about himself. He loves to ride his horses. He loves his teammates. He talks about how it's about winning to him. And you can see it with the way he plays. He doesn't talk about himself. He doesn't force the action. He can go get 40. He can go get 50 sometimes. But I think he gets more joy in seeing his teammates succeed, seeing his teammates happy, and winning, and that's what he's done consistently. He averaged a triple-double this season, and he did it the unconventional way because he's a guy who can go get 30, but he settled for 25 and 26. And the fact that I'm saying he's settled for that really speaks to his greatness.
Do you think he's the best player in the NBA right now?
The best player in the NBA right now. I do think right now what he does, the all-around game, everything that Dame just said, is exactly what we're seeing him do at the highest level, and that's the most important part. Now, the problem is that when it's all the optics, it's what the appearance is what you look at. When you say best player in the NBA, you're expecting the guy that's jumping through the gym, that can do all kinds of things athletically that are impressive. But if you watch him pass the basketball, there's an athleticism to that is elite. His ability of the one-handed passes, the touch passes. I compared him recently, the same number 15, to Patrick Mahomes. And what Mahomes does on the field in the NFL as a quarterback is the same thing we're seeing out of Nikola Jokic. And I also think you appreciate him because, as CJ said, he does seem to enjoy more sharing the ball, setting up teammates, finding the open man, because that's a fun part of the game when everybody's involved. He probably could average 38 a game or 35 a game if he wanted to. But in the game that he likes to play, he likes everybody to touch the basketball, which is probably why that fourth quarter Game 2 and the fourth quarter Game 1, that's not really how he wants to play. And I'm curious if that changes in Game 3.
And he's at his best when he's facilitating and getting other people involved. Zach, what do you think? Best player in the NBA right now?
Giannis is at home, wherever he is, taking some notes. I'm going to remember what all these guys said because 6 months ago the answer was me. But I think Jokic is I think easily now the best offensive player in the NBA, and I do think he's done enough defensively to raise his floor that right now the results speak for themselves. He's in the finals. His team's in the finals. He's averaging a triple-double in the playoffs. He's a two-time MVP. I think now is the time is right to say he has eked past Giannis and Kevin Durant as the best player in the NBA. In a year, we might say something else if Milwaukee's in the finals again, but right now it's Jokic.
Real quick, what's at stake for Jokic? Real quick.
There's a lot at stake. Look, what we've said, he's won the MVP for 2 straight years, and yet not everybody knows him. In basketball, all the experts, Zach Lowe is an expert, CJ's a player. Like, we all know what he's about. But I'm talking about in the sports world, nobody really knows him. We're getting to know him now. 316 million views he has right now. It's the most of any player on social media in the playoffs. He was once top 10, once top 20. Now he's number 1. So he's getting the attention now. Right. For him to win a championship now validates everything that he's doing. But to fail to win a championship might lead to some people, again, on the surface, not basketball people, on the surface, to kind of say, man, he's not all that.
Take a listen to this, because Lillard and I also discussed his future in the NBA on my podcast, The Last Stand, and where would he like to play next if he left Portland. Here's his answer.
Everybody keeps saying